ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between.
He's a South Texan poppy poet living that hashtag middle-class gay life. It's Chibi.
She's a little bit Selena, a little bit J-Lo, and a whole lot of Pisces. It's Rocky.
And this is Words and Shit,
the show where you get to know the person behind the poetry.
Brought to you by Write Art Out
and Gemini's Productions. Bienvenida, amiga.
Bendiciones, amiga.
No, not you blessing me.
Yes. Just like, I know, right? Que Dios te lo bendiga, you know?
You ascended to that level where you are now the one giving the blessings?
You know what? Yes. So I am in Doña era, okay? We skipped Señora and now we're in our Doña.
Wow, we went hard. Okay. Doña Raquel.
Yes, Doña Raquel. Oh my God, I love that.
I feel like the internet has aged us faster than previous generations, right? Like we're already like, we're in our 30s and both of us are like, that's right, I'm an elder now. I'm in my auntie phase.
Really, my auntie phase, my tia, my titi phase going on right now. And I did not think that we would be here. You know, in my 30s, I still feel like I'm just a teenage girl, just a boss.
Right?
Yes.
The beautiful thing about 30s, it's like you get to do everything you did in your 20s, but now with a little bit more perspective, you know, maybe a little bit more stability, a little more knowledge. And now you look at these kids running around and I'm like, you know, it's like, wow, we were young once.
But we're still young, okay?
We are still young. We just now offer wisdom and mentorship and protection for our young queer youth, you know, as they're exploring the world. And it's interesting to me because like growing up in Laredo, you know, on the southern border of Texas, I didn't really have any kind of queer elders to look at, right? Yes. Even going to college in Austin, there in the early 2000s, again, like there wasn't this sense of like that I could find elders in the community. It was more about finding peers, right? Finding each other. Yes. And I mean, unfortunately, a lot of that goes to the fact of the kind of like lost generation because of the HIV/AIDS crisis, right? Mm-hmm. That we lost who would be our elders and our mentors. And that's why I think it's so important that now there's so many artists that are doing stuff that feels archival, right?
It really does. Yes. And I really feel like that really speaks to me because I came out later now I say later, I was a late queer baby when I was like 25, which I'm like 25 is a baby. But yes, just trying to find elders was kind of hard, right? Even in San Antonio. But now that my friends and I, we go out to these like queer parties and we just look at these youth just living their best life. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, we are the elders. Those are the babies and we need to take care of them. And let's just hope that the babies don't come up to us thinking that we're like sugar, or like close guardians.
Yeah. And we need to not just tell our stories, but go back and tell the untold stories of the past, right? Again, yes, because it used to be so suppressed and so closeted and so hidden, especially queer people of color, right? Yes. That I love that there are people out there that are doing the work to get their stories told and visible, so that this sense of validity, right? To just exist and just be. And it was so wonderful to talk about the work that our guest today, Jason B. Crawford, has been doing in terms of this kind of like archival work in order to shine light on queer artists of the past that did not get the recognition that they deserved at the time of their lives. So I just want to dive right into it, shall we?
Yes, please.
Jason B. Crawford is a writer born in Washington, D.C., raised in Lansing, Michigan. Their debut full-length year of the Unicorn Kidz is out from Sundress Publication. They hold a Bachelor of Science in Creative Writing from Eastern Michigan University. They are a 2023 Lambda Literary Emerging LGBTQ Voices Fellow, which is where I got to meet them because we were both there in the poetry cohort. Oh my God, small flex. They are the winner of the Courtney Valentine Prize for Outstanding Work by a Millennial Artist, the winner of the RHINO's Founders Prize, and a finalist for the Frontiers Open Prize. They were a finalist for the Tom Howard Margaret Reid 2021 and 2022 poetry contest. Their work can be found or is forthcoming in Poetry Magazine, Metro Weekly, AGNI Magazine, Foglifter Magazine, RHINO Poetry, and elsewhere. They hold an MFA in poetry from the New School. Y'all ain't ready for this emotional conversation with Jason B. Crawford. Hey, Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. How's it going?
I mean, we're trucking along, just trying to get through this crazy thing we call life.
Every day.
Salute to that.
Oh my goodness. But we're super excited to have you. Really. Chibi has said like nothing but amazing things about experience, y'all working together, collaborating. And they're like, yeah, you're going to love Jason. They're amazing. Right. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's have them on. So as we are trying to get to know you, your poetry, who you are, I like to do a little quick check-in, right? Very poetry kind of thing, and ask you, how's your heart today?
Ooh, I knew this was coming too. This is the thing. When you know something's about to come and you're like, I got this. Yeah. Honestly, I think it is, I'm going to say it's a strong 84%. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna give you a percentage. I was a math baby before I was a writer, so numbers are my jam sometimes. And I've been thinking very heavily about my place in the writing world, especially coming back from Lambda and where I got to spend a beautiful, wonderful week with Chibi, and thinking about what I'm doing for the community, what I'm doing in spite of the community, and how I can continually push towards not just my own goals, but the goals of the community. I've always been a person that's been I want to uplift my friends, but it's not just my friends. I'm not just reading my friends. So I think that little 16% is me feeling like I'm not doing enough yet. And I'm working towards it.
Well, you're doing plenty, and you've done a lot. You have an extensive body of work that is all over the place, and working on a couple of other projects as well. The work that I got to see while we read Lambda together just was visceral and beautiful at the same time. So I'm excited to get to know you a little bit more, and for our listeners to get to know you and your work. So before we really dive into the poetry and the conversation, we like to kick it off with a little game we call speed dating. So we're going to ask you a series of questions, just 4 questions, and we encourage you to answer as concisely as possible. Okay. We might come back and revisit some of your answers later. So first question, where do you feel most free?
Ypsilanti, Michigan. Yeah.
We will come back and visit this question.
Love it. And that's your home, right? Is that where you were raised?
No, I was raised in Lansing, Michigan, but Ypsi is where I became. So.
Okay, we'll definitely go into it a little bit more. We'll circle back. Okay. All right, Jason, I see you wearing your X-Men t-shirt. Okay. Yeah, I got you an X-Men question. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Okay. So what would be your X-Men mutant name, and from what era would you rock their costume?
So I have these actually. That's wild. So I used to be a comic book. Well, I used to like pretend like I was drawing comic books. I wasn't good, but I would have my name was always Nightmare. And it would have been, I really love the 80s X-Men era. Yes. Give me Storm with the punk hair. Like that's, you know, we're best friends.
Mm. We will probably come back to that too. My husband's an X-Men, like complete, knows ins and outs and everything's like, so it's raw. And I loved X-Men growing up. I'm not as nerdy about it, but we'll have a good geek fest.
I know. X-Men is like so queer though. I love it. It's so queer.
We'll talk about it. Okay, my next question, and I ask this of every one of our guests because I am generally just in love with food. What is your favorite food or dish to eat?
Yes. So my favorite food, because I immediately think what is my favorite food to cook versus like what is my favorite food to eat. I think my favorite food to eat has to be barbecue ribs, but they have to be on the grill. They cannot be in the oven.
In the oven? No, I guess people put them in the oven. No,
I smoke my ribs. Okay, we're in Texas. Yeah,
this is true.
We know barbecue ribs. And I will. I'm making a vow right now. One of these days, I'm gonna serve you some of my smoked ribs, and you're gonna love them.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, I love ribs.
Yeah, so, and Chibi's cooking is just superior. So if you've ever been blessed or lucky enough to have their cooking, like, yes, ask for seconds and like thirds and fourths. All right. Okay, so this is my last question. This is the last question for speed dating. So we know that you are an early 2000s like basketball fan, right? I just want to know, does Space Jam count as part of that like era of basketball? And like, where would the like Toon Squad rank in like the early 2000s basketball teams?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I don't, because I'm pretty sure as a person that has watched Space Jam a lot, not my most watched movie as a child, but it was up there. I think it's not. I think it's late 90s.
Oh, that's
it's
true.
like
that's true.
It's late 90s, and unfortunately, they're falling to the Bulls, and they're falling to the Bulls. All six rings. But I think they could have taken the Rockets. I think they got the Rockets. I know for sure, and I'm sorry, Jay, but I know for a fact they got San Antonio because that was a weak year. But they also might have gotten Lakers that last year too.
Okay.
I know, fighting words. I know.
They are fighting words.
People have murdered for less. So
I'm a huge like San Antonio Spurs fan, but I will say it was like 2010s, right? When like right before we got our our fifth championship, right? So that's where I'm at.
That was the era. That was the era. All right. You all said a lot of words. The only one I knew was Spurs and Bulls. And even then, very, very, surface level. So,
I mean, in other kinky ways too, Kimmy.
Hey. This is our queerest season yet, I think. I really think this is our queerest season of Words and Shit. I might have to go back and fact check myself, but we were looking at it and I was like, I think we have maybe 2 cis het white men on, not even white men, just cis het men, on this podcast this season. So I'm here for it. Let's just roll into it then. Jason, can you share a poem with us?
Of course. I'm going to read a poem specifically from the new work I'm working on. So just to like I hate to do the preferencing, but it's a poem that is working in conjunction with photographs of Alvin Baltrop. He is a photographer from the Bronx that passed away in 2004. And he basically took a bunch of pictures of the Christopher Street piers in the 70s and 80s, documenting and archiving what queer life was like on the piers as a safe haven or a utopia, but also as a person that was like ousted from, like, they thought he was a queer, even though he was. So I've been trying to lift his legacy. So all the poems have the same title for the most part. And each poem is just a different a fractal piece from one of his pictures from a set. So the poem is untitled 1975 to 86. And this one is for my dear friend Aubrey. I'm untrustworthy in love. Contradiction drips from my mouth like the blood of an apricot. And here, at the fissure of language where I describe the violence men have wrought in my throat, should I have said the juice rather than the blood, meant to speak its crucifixion rather than its sacrifice? I have failed language just as men have failed me. The only thing I am still confident in is how to make a mockery of the leaves. One boy told me all summer about how much he loved the back of my knees, how beautiful it must be to own a pair of knees, to flaunt them in the dark. Aubrey says, there's nothing more beautiful than a deer lying in a dusk-ridden field haloed by fireflies. Even this is a frosted glass lens of the truth. We are both unable to picture the memory as it was. In theirs, the sky is rosewood and bugs. I imagine the neon of their backs drifting a crown above the deer's skull. Here, there is more language to describe the impossibility of a sky endlessly circling dust. I call to the fireflies because I cannot count them all before I die. Because of this, they are the only forever I know to exist. In the city, I miss the deer and the bugs that brighten the night in children's joy. People are so impatient here now with their horns. All of the boys want to kiss before they speak, their lips glistening in the drool of another. A boy tells me he remembers my face, but confuses me with a different boy he dreamed of. One where he sucked the gristle from that boy's white copper tone eyes. He spends the rest of the night apologizing, asking if he can make it up in tongues. Silly me, a deer caught in a cylinder of light, will always forgive him. Will pull the freckles from the tulips. He will lie with his teeth. And once a classmate told me that naming all of my loves and my poems as boys will make us all too young for lust. But isn't this what we desired? To be lied to by language, to be endless, to stand naked on a rooftop, the wind carving our bodies into something palatable to offer the dirt, to wake in yet another April, smelling of dead bugs.
Rocky, you're the Pisces. Why am I the one tearing up?
That's because I was trying to hold it together and write.
There's so many ways that we can start this conversation and so many different things that I want to dive into. but I want to open. I want to go back to talk about the collection that you're working on as a whole. But first, I want to talk about nature. You know, it's so interesting to me because you're writing about these photographs about the New York piers, right? Which are industrial as fuck, right? Like not really akin to nature, but yet in this piece and in a lot of the pieces that I was privileged to read in this collection, nature is very much a character in this work. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Why?
Yeah, for sure. So when I started thinking about the pieces in general, I really was like trying to pull out the nature that I was missing from Michigan. So my first collection of poems, Year of the Unicorn Kidz, is really centered in nature because they're essentially the same thing. It's a book of cruising poems, but this is like New York life. That was like just talking about the like dangers of being queer and the lack of desire. And a lot of times I would center that in the fact that I love going in nature and hiking. And I think I spent a lot of my first 2 years in New York craving nature, because the nature here, even when you have nature, it's not the same as the nature anywhere else. And like I kind of, sometimes I miss being able to go hiking and go to different parks that I used to love to go to, and jump in the lake and things like that. And I think that's where the nature's like coming in, because I think there is a sense of nature that is lost in New York that I miss. And it's, it's made up with other things that make New York amazing. And that's why I'm here. Right. But there's a piece of me as, a lifelong Michigander that's just like, but where are the trees? Where's the grass? Where are the bugs? And there aren't roaches. What else is there? What could be there? So I think within these poems, I'm just filling space of what the utopia could be and what's being missing.
I do love that, especially with like New York, right? As you were saying, it is called the concrete jungle for a reason. And when I think about the piers, like the piers is so ironic for me, that is where like queer youth go to like to discover and find community, right? And I've noticed like on your social medias, you say that you coin yourself as like the dad to all trans like kids. And I think like this, especially the poem that you just shared with us, like kind of speaks to that like love of seeing these like young youth kind of discover themselves, find love in these like concrete areas that are so secluded. And I'm so curious to like why did you choose these certain photographs and this particular photographer to write your poems about, or in conjunction with? Yeah, in conversation. That's what I want to say, in conversation with.
It was honestly accidental. I had not known who Alvin Baltruck was. And if you've seen John Keane's new book, Punks, the photo on the front is a Alvin Baltruck photo. And it's like, I've seen that photo a million times because, it's, National Book Award winner type shit. So like, I was like, oh, that's you too. But my friend who lives here is a writer, and they saw a book that was The Poetics of Cruising. And I was like, that's right up my alley. So I went to go buy it, and I was reading the first chapter, and it had 3 photographers in it. And they said the third photographer was not, like, the first 2 were like transplants that came to New York. And the third was a native New Yorker that was Black and queer, and also did not get recognition for his work until after he died, because they thought that he was trying to steal queer space. I think about that, struggle, that battle that happens so often, where white people and whiteness is allowed to take space and like claim all of queerness, and anyone else that's trying to come in there, you're not allowed to have both of those identities. And I was like, I too have been in this space where I have been too Black to be queer. And I wanted to, so I looked up the photos and I was stunned, and I wrote a poem. And then I looked at another one, I wrote another one, and then I wrote the third one. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to keep writing these poems. And then here we are.
Here we are, a whole collection later.
Truly. Like I kept saying, I'm going to stop. I wrote like 20 pages and I was like, okay, I'll stop and make it a chapbook. Okay. It'll be a thicker chapbook. I have a full life now.
Yes. And we're here for it, and we can't wait for it to come out into the world. I think it's interesting too, because like Rocky was saying, the New York City Piers were definitely a place where people went because they could be themselves, right? And they could be freer there. And when I say they, I think I know that's the white gay male they. But they found a space where they felt like they could finally be free. So I want to go back to your answer about where you feel the most free, or where you felt like you could be free, which was this city in Michigan that was not where you grew up. Can you talk to us about it and why? If you're,
of course, Ipsatucky.
Ipsatucky. Not with that Midwestern accent too.
So Ypsilanti, Michigan is where I went to school. I went to Eastern Michigan, which Ypsilanti borders Ann Arbor. And for a lot of people, Ann Arbor is like the queer mecca of Michigan, right? Because it's like, they're very openly progressive, but only progressive to a certain point. I'm probably going to shake the table. I'm ruffling some leaves, but that's okay. I just thought about this. Well, whatever. Because like they're comfortable with pushing the envelope as long as it affects their agenda. So they're like, oh, we're cool with queer people as long as like they're not those queer people. And it really feels like if you're a skinny white twink, then you're going to make it in Ann Arbor. Well, everyone else goes to MC. Like, that's just how it is. And like, I just remember being on campus and seeing, like, I wasn't out. I didn't know who I was at the point in time. Like, I thought I was straight. And like, seeing queer people, openly queer, walking around, holding hands, having partners, and like being able to be around, like I grew up around Black people. And then for a little bit, I went to a school where most of the people were white. And then I went to Eastern, and then it was like Black people again. So like being around a bunch of Black people that are from Detroit and from Flint and from Saginaw, and like having those people be around in my circle made me understand who I was and what impact community could have. And we always used to make a joke. We were like our first 2 years, we're like, oh yeah, once we're done, we're out. Like, I can't be a local. Like, I can't be one of these locals. And then we all stayed for 10 years. Like, and I looked up one day. I was like, oh, I've actually been in Ypsilanti for 9 years. Like, I don't know how. Like, people are calling me a notable gay in Ann Arbor. Like, that's wild to me. Like, that's wild to me. But I think spaces like that are so important, where like you feel safe. Like, I felt safe when I was in Ann Arbor. When I was in Nipsey, really not Ann Arbor, but like, and I felt safe in Ann Arbor to an extent because people knew who I was. But like in Ipsy, I was safe, and that is so important. And I can't say I feel the same when I was in Lansing all the time, or when I was in Toledo for that little bit, but in Ipsy I was.
Does Ipsy make an appearance in your work?
Yes. There are very few poems, but yes. One thing that about me is I am I'm a speculative poet. Okay. So a lot of my poetry is like fiction storytelling, because I was a fiction major before I was a creator, before I was a poetry major. So it's there, but not really. A little bit.
I think what I'm hearing throughout this whole, throughout this interview right now is just like taking up space, also navigating these geopolitical areas throughout the United States within your writing. And I know before we started recording, you specifically said that you wanted to go to New York City to go to for schooling. And I wonder how New York has really influenced your writing. And do you think it's changed because you've been in New York and because you went to the new school for that?
Absolutely. I don't think I would have had the connection I have with Ball Drop if I wasn't here. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would have met the people I've met, the writers I've been able to like sit down and gain knowledge from if I wasn't here. If anything, like I went to a Monday night show and it was like Monica Yoon and Evie Shockley, and Mark Bivens, who's my advisor, and so I will not leave him out because I do like him too. But going to those shows and it's just like, oh, Patricia Smith is just going to be here on Thursday. No big deal.
Yeah.
I think having that access is super important, and it sucks that we can't always have that access across the board everywhere, because I do learn by being in space. I also think I really think about poetry as a looking, right? So as I'm walking around, I'm gathering the information and I'm thinking about everything and every possibility of the objects around me. And the objects around me have changed since I was in Michigan. They're not the same. So it changes the landscape of what my poetics are. And the new school definitely taught me, if anything, it taught me how to read a poem. I did not know how, even after I was an undergrad, creative writing major. That's my undergrad degree. And I did not know how to read a poem. I couldn't tell you, not physically what I just did. I'm talking about sitting down and analyzing and telling you what that poem is about. Oh, baby, I couldn't do that. That was not for me. And now I can.
That's amazing. I also I know that you center your Blackness and Black queerness within Michigan and probably Washington, D.C., but has that definition, has that expanded in New York City while you've been writing? And do you feel like you can be a notable gay in Brooklyn?
I'm so trying. Oh my God. Let me tell you, girl. I want to be a notable gay in Brooklyn so bad. That's such a difficult question for me, for real, because I also understand that gentrification is not it's a colonial thing, but it's not a white thing.
Yeah.
We say that these people are pushing out the local people here.
Yeah.
And that is true, but it's not just the white people doing it. It's mostly the white people doing it. And it is the white people coming in and buying up the homes and buying up the property and running up rent and all that stuff. And that is very true. But I also have to be super cognizant of what it means for me to come in as an outsider that literally visited New York in 2019 for the first time, and then to live here and then want to take that space.
Yes.
When there are other people that live here that also deserve that space. And I can be a notable gay that live in Brooklyn, and that's fine. I'm not a notable from, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I'm working towards it. I am working towards it.
Yeah. And I think part of that work too is respecting what was there before you got there, right? And I think you're doing that in this collection specifically. We've actually, funny enough, been talking a lot about the work that poetry does as archival work. And I wanna dive a little bit more and pick your brain about that. But first, can you share another poem with us?
Of course. So I'm gonna do another ball drop poem, if that's okay with you. Mainly because I don't have to explain anything again, so y'all know what's going on. A lot of the pictures in there are this book is very erotic. There's a lot of nudes. There's like sex scenes and all that stuff, but there's this one picture that was like wild to me, where it was like this guy just standing in an abandoned warehouse, fully clothed, holding a bag, and like his back is kind of turned to you, so you can see his right shoulder, and it just looks like he's contemplating like life. And I was like, me too. So I'm gonna first say for suicidal ideation, content warning, and yeah. Untitled 1975 to 86. It is not that I wish to be dead. I have just gotten worse at being alive. And anything can be a sonnet if we try hard enough. Last night, from a small tree branch wilting in my front yard, I overheard a songbird crying to death. I cannot tell you who the tears beckon. Maybe it was the tree, maybe the wind, maybe in the act of telling us she still lived. I placed my cheek against the exposed brick wall in my apartment as if to say, I understand this longing, even if it is for my own demise. This is where the boy enters. Numb, nullified, neurotic, nude. The body is often all of these things at once. A phantom tongue goats into my mouth. I share spit with the boards gathering at my feet. I've always known how to blame others for my own wrongs. Even the blue jays carry the grief of mourning doves sometimes. I hate to say water lilies make me sad. I fear anything willing to learn how to survive in water. What if I spilled off this windowsill? Falcon dive towards the gray river's jaw. Would a blackbird catch me in her beak? Suspend me in air until we both give in to our wants. I am not the authority on the color green, but at midnight I am flush in its grip. Instead of dying, I chose to rot. A boy asked me what I am wearing, and I lie, naked in his dreams, my chest drowning in jade light. Remember the call of the bird, its sweet tongue whispering from behind my building. Oh, to be that free, the wind carrying your last tune. I tender my fingers against the song I give to my lovers. Press my pig silk flesh against the mouth of a window and wait for it to sliver me. This switchblade glass, my cheap paper skin. My entire life I've been taught how to die gracefully. My hair still neat, a pile of feathers in my hand. Through the window, I hear the swallow sing, and I follow suit. I open my throat.
Beautiful.
I feel like I was holding my breath. Oh my God. So poetry as archival work.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I think this is a very it's interesting the way that you're doing this too, right? Because you said earlier that like you consider yourself very much a speculative poet, right? And so you're taking these images from the archive, and creating narratives that are fiction for the most part, right? Like there's no way to really confirm what you're writing about the image that's inspiring the poem. But in a way, it then acts as a mirror towards the photo itself, right? And brings the attention back onto the archive and the lives. I'm curious on your thoughts on it all.
I think that's it, right? Like that is 100% it. Like, if you see any of the poems out in the wild, which like this one is coming out soon, there are a couple that are already out. I make sure, because in the collection, it's not stated for Alvin or after Alvin, every single poem. I'll say it in like the dedication, or I'll put it in the, it's definitely going to go in the notes, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like when I get it published out, like as a single piece, I make sure Alvin's name is there. So if for anything, you're going to go ahead and look to see who is Alvin Baltrop. Who is this person? And that at least starts or continues that conversation of like Black queer photographers and artists having space. And it's so super important that we look to our past and we look to our ancestors and we look to those people that, basically got us here to say like, this isn't new, right? Like writing about admiring queer Black body in space, or admiring cruising, or wanting to be queer and safe. Those aren't new topics that we started in 2022, right? We've been talking about this, and just understanding and knowing that history is so important.
Love it. Thank you. But I feel like everything that you've been sharing has been so intentional, and so you've taken a lot of care, especially with like Alvin's photography, and trying to portray and find yourself and these other young youths in the photography in itself. I kind of just want to, just for myself, for my selfish reasons, I want to know, do you have like a favorite photo that he took? And did you write a poem about it? Or the photo?
Yes, I do. And I'm going to say it kind of just switched to this one, because I had one, it was this Black guy that was like, because there's not a lot of Black people in these pictures, of course, other than him. Like he took some self-portraits, which is another section of the book where I've been writing like self-portrait and given it a number. So there's 4 of those as well. But there's one Black guy standing on like 1 foot and like he's balancing. And I was like, oh, that's my favorite. I love this photo. But no, there's one that I was lucky enough that the estate actually sent me to look at. I like told them what I was doing, and they loved that I was doing it, and they sent me the photo so I could look. I can't post it as like my MySpace background. I don't know why MySpace. But like I can like
into the conversation.
We need somewhere to go. But it was like this photo of Alvin he's in hospice. He took photos as he died of cancer, which is not an ironic way to go, but to think about how a lot of the documentation that he's also doing is the pre and post AIDS crisis, like documentation. And then like he dies of cancer at 55. I think it was 54 or 55. And he wanted to document that as well. And so he has this picture of him in hospice where he's in the bathroom of the hospice, and he's like, just in the flannel, and he looks so frail, and like everything he's done is in black and white, right? So like, and he's like shadowed a little bit, so like the focus isn't still on him. And I got the picture and I like cried. Like I opened it and I was talking to my love, my little sister, Taylor Bias. And I was like, oh yeah, oh my God, they sent me the picture. And like, so I'm FaceTiming her. I opened it and just tears. And I wrote a poem. On the way down to Lambda is the poem I read at the first night of Lambda. Yeah.
The world can't get this collection soon.
I know. And so now I'm kind of thinking like we're all talking about legacy and like being elders in like the queer community. Cause I know I'll disclose my age where I'm 33 and I definitely feel like I'm starting to get the elder status within the queer community. And I just kind of want to know what kind of like ancestor or elder you want to be. And would you want another artist to continue their your archival work? And at what form do you want that continuation to be?
So first off, that is such a tender question in my heart. Yes. So I feel like I'm moving out of like dad phase. And I'm moving into auntie phase. And I'm really excited about my auntie phase. I'm about to get the good side part wig. And I ain't showing up with no food, but I will have I will bring the bottles. And yeah, I would love for people to really think about, God, I mean, if I'm looking at my own legacy right now, it's my cruising poems. So like, but I think they're important. Like I feel like I've written them. I think they're important. Like cruising is a thing that started for us for the most part because there weren't safe spaces for queer people to meet and be intimate. So you're looking into this space and you're saying, even here, even in this, there's danger. In my most intimate space, there's danger. And I think there's so much that we have not unearthed within that. That's so important.
So, as you kind of said at the top of the show when we checked in, there's still work to do, right? To get these stories out there, these narratives, this history out there. Got to teach the children, as they say. So as we're thinking about the future, I want to close with this question. We actually close with this question each episode. As you're thinking about your future, right, and what's to come, the next chapter of your life. If the next chapter of your life was a poem, what would be the title of that poem?
I think it's tenured. Because that's what we're working for right now. I need to be. I like my little new school job, but like if I can be tenured, I'm just saying.
Speak it out loud. Let the universe hear it.
Manifest.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, no. Honestly, I think it would be something within the realm of just thinking about Black queer joy. So it would definitely be Black queer joy. Because that's so important to me.
Yeah. Well, we're here for it, and we're going to celebrate it.
Real. I really do always think that Black queer joy is revolutionary. It's basically, if there's no Black queer joy, there's no joy for anyone else. Really. That is like the pioneers. So go ahead.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us, sharing your work, sharing your stories, sharing your history. It has been a joy. I know, we've talked a lot about sadness, but it has been a joy to get to know you better and to understand how that brilliant mind of yours works and where it's at. If people want to find you or your work, where can they go do it?
I've made it so easy. I am Jason B. Crawford on all platforms, including my website.
Yeah.
And Blue Sky, I guess, or whatever that new thing is. I feel so old now. That newfangled. I said I described kids the other day as youngin, and I feel this. So yeah. That's where you find me, or some street corner.
Look, at Lambda, Nick Ansett gave me a Blue Sky invitation, and right now, she is my only friend on Blue Sky, and I kind of love it. I kind of don't want.
That's fair. I mean, I'm there if you need another one. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'll find you. But yeah. Awesome. So Jason B. Crawford across all social media platforms. Y'all go find this beautiful, beautiful person and their work and revel in it. Thanks for being here, Jason.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay. I definitely see why you're I'll be in my feels.
I was in my feels. Oh my God.
No, right now, I don't know why I want to cry.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful while also being so raw and real. And I'm telling you, I got so emotional when I first encountered Jason's poems, and I was just really excited to get him on this show and get to know him better, and for more people to find out. Not that he needs our little help, but there's just something. Even though it's speculative, it really is in tune with the reality of what a lot of queer people face, and the struggles that we go through, and the triumphs that we have, and the journey that we're on. And so it's beautiful to see and share that space.
Yeah, especially taking up space and spaces that didn't want us. And I think Jason has done an amazing job just writing about it, right? And giving us permission, I think, at the very end to do that, and permission to be joyful, that we can celebrate ourselves even in spaces that don't want us. So,
and permission to rest.
Yes, just a beautiful being in general. And I'm definitely celebrating their new auntie phase. I'm at Titi phase right now, but yes, auntie phase right now. Go for it.
Look, I'm in my moo era, so I feel it.
Yes, get my bata ready. Let's go.
All right, I'm going to give us permission to rest. Let's thank some people and get out of here, shall we?
Of course. First, I want to just thank the listeners here at Words and Shit. We make the podcast for you, poetry lovers, like you out there. And we thank you so much for supporting us and these beautifully spoken words that you hear throughout our podcast.
Absolutely. We also want to give a big thank you and shout out to Chris Conde, who produced our theme music for the show. Go support queer artists. They're an amazing hardcore metal rapper person.
Amazing. And thank you to Write Art Out and the City of San Antonio Department of Arts and Culture, whose support has helped produce this podcast, because we fancy and we love all the support.
We're not only fancy, we're out there. So if you are just joining us, make sure to follow us on IG and Twitter and Threads. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to create our Threads. Fuck whatever Musk wants to call it. It's not X, it's Twitter, but I also don't think I want to be there. So follow us at Words and Shh, wherever you are on social media, and feel free to slide into our DMs. Let us know of other poets that you know that you think should be on this show, and maybe we can get them.
And obviously we bring amazing, dope poets onto our podcast. So if you want to know other poets that we've interviewed, you can watch or listen past episodes on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps us get the word out there about the show so that more people can find out about the incredible poets that we have featured here.
And lastly, just to let you know, this has been a Gem in Eyes Productions podcast.
Thank you. And until next time, stay safe out there.
Adios.